massive congratulations on Man Finds Tape. I'm a big found footage head slash like pseudo documentary
Nice.
person, so I was so excited. So, very basic first off question, but I wanted to hear from the two of you, like, how did you come together to make this film? Like, what's the origin story for Man Finds Tape?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a long one. Paul and I have been producing partners for over 10 years. We started working together around 2010-ish. We
Wow.
produced a couple features for a then young filmmaker, Emily Higgins. We produced My Second Teen Romance and Grow Up Tony Phillips, and some shorts as web series and whatnot, and a couple other features for other people. And during that time, we had focused on making other people's films, and then at one point we're just kind of like, well, what about should we start making some stuff for ourselves? And we made a short together, which at the time the plan was that Paul would direct and I would write. So we made a short that way called Giver Taker. In the process of making that, the roles kind of started to blur together, and sort of from that point on, we
Mm,
just had the natural like, well, why don't we just both do both sides of it?
hell yeah.
Man Finds Tape, very specifically, though, was sort of a long time coming. It had different evolutions. It was originally conceived as a entirely scripted, fictionalized podcast about an investigator going to the small town to investigate this weird piece of footage. We obviously never made that version of it, but it sat in the back of our minds. And then when it came time to think about what we might want to do as our first feature, we kind of gave ourselves. Paul and I are very practical filmmakers in a lot of ways, and so we looked at what advantages we had. Paul has a documentary producing background, so we thought about, okay, well,
Oh.
what if we leaned into something there? What kind of story would we like to tell in that format? And then that's when the podcaster investigative story came back around, and so then we reconfigured the whole thing and rewrote it for this format.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's so cool. And what was it like writing a fic, like especially Paul for you with documentary experience? What was that like taking that and then mapping it onto a horror movie? Like that's gotta be such an interesting kind of vibe to go from documentary to horror documentary question mark.
Yeah, it was, I mean, writing it was the most complicated thing we've ever done.
I
Peter
was so
written,
curious about that. Like all the different pieces. It's like a freaking like it's like that meme from of Charlie Day from
Yeah,
yeah,
Always Sunny where
it,
he's like in front of the board with like all of the
it
you know,
kind
drawings.
of.
yeah,
Yeah, it really was because the script, we wrote all of the transitional elements. We wrote all of the like little media that you're seeing, photographs, inserts of web shots,
Oh,
like all of that stuff was conceived of on the page. I mean, it changed in execution along the way, but we knew what we would do. So like the screenplay, and I'll shut up soon so Paul
um,
can talk, but like the very first page of the screenplay said this film is a documentary because we felt like we kind of had to explain that it's not going to read like a traditional screenplay. Like it had way more editorial call outs and things like that in it.
yeah.
oh,
And
cool.
speaking of the complexity of it, kind of the first draft we wrote, we got through the whole thing and then looked at it and we're like, dang, we just wrote the found footage version of the story. And we're like, but
Okay.
that's not how you would construct a documentary necessarily, just from start to finish or in narrative order. And so, how would we construct this as an edited documentary? Because the script really had to represent what the very close to what the edit was going to be because of the
Yeah.
format. And we knew like, we weren't going to be in a position to like go back and do many pickups with actors and B-roll and all that kind of stuff. We had to get it in the production. Whereas in documentary, you're kind of you have multiple shoot windows throughout the
Yeah.
process and you're going back and picking stuff up and all that. And so yeah, that first draft we kind of then had to go back to the beginning. We go, okay, let's treat this as the events that occurred and then now let's edit them like on the page as if we were editing the movie and write in the voiceover and kind of all that kind of stuff. So it was a super complicated process. I don't think either of us are down to do it again. We want to write our next movie is going to be a bit more traditional narrative, but it was a great learning experience and we
It
had
was it was also hard. it was hard for two reasons. A, conceiving and writing all of the documentary aspects of it is just really hard. But the challenging thing then is to also work in more traditional narrative elements, character growth, character arcs, like relationships, to have that stuff in the documentary format itself was also a really tough puzzle to figure out.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Because yeah, wow. That is so complicated. But like, so then when you had to go to the shooting, was it now that you had done all that work, puzzle piecing together the script and making it read like a documentary, did that make it easier in the shooting process, or was it, did at all? I mean, I know shooting a film, like the script versus what happens is so different. I know, but like, did it make it any easier, or did it make it more complicated?
There's elements that are, I
Okay.
hesitate to use the word easier for anything, but there are
Yeah, I
elements
know.
that were like because of the format, there's only so many shots we can get in a day in a scene. And so
That's
it's
true,
not like
yeah.
we can just go pop off a close up or grab an insert of something. Like every shot had to be character motivated, why that shot exists. And so
Yeah.
we would sometimes get to days, it's like 9 hours in, and we're like, oh, well, that's it. Like we're wrap early because we can't shoot anything else here.
Yeah.
And but the writing just continue. I mean, everybody says you write in pre-post or
Yeah.
pre-production and post, and that really happened for us. And we really made sure to focus on casting actors that were on board with owning their characters. And we told everybody the dialogue is just a starting point. The dialogue we wrote is a starting point, and it needs to come alive through you, and we need you to challenge us. And like so much of
Mm.
the character work, so like especially with Kelsey Pravilsky, who plays Lynn, the main
Yeah.
character, a lot of the film we're looking through her camera lens, and that is also her performance, right? It's that
Yeah.
character. And so we'd be blocking out scenes with her, and this is one of the primary reasons we cast her, is because she would challenge us and say, I wouldn't go stand there in this moment because
Oh,
I
cool.
and so we were having to kind of like rework things on the fly with her and figure it out, and always kind of make sure that the character logic of it was sound. And so, yeah, it was just constantly evolving. And then we rewrote stuff in post production, and Kelsey came over and recorded new voiceover and was always game for just kind of continually evolving the character and the themes and everything.
That's so
Yeah, I would
cool.
I would say the documentary format in a way it gives you a sort of fixed box that you can figure out how to work within. And
Yeah.
so it made setting up certain scenes and whatnot easier, but then the unexpected challenge I think that we ran into is if your point of view for a scene is a security camera in the corner of a kitchen, like you don't have necessarily the freedom to do punch-ins as Paul was saying. So like solving problems with our practical effects was a bit challenging in that regard. And then also as we were saying with Paul was saying with the actors, once you're in a physical space, like you can cheat geography a lot when you're a traditional film because you could, if you're in a medium shot that's like halfway in the room, like you can cheat the body language of actors and whatnot in a way that you can't when you're doing it the style that we did. So we had to have lots of conversations with the actor, which is like, okay, so this is our space for the day. How do we need to rework the scene to make this feel more natural, given that we're shooting it from a camera that's all the way over here, kind of thing.
I was curious about I like because I there is a mo there are moments with fixed camera that are more pixelated, and I like how you kind of use that throughout the film, especially when there are reveals that were very exciting to me, and I will not spoil because I love, but that gets to my like the film seems very like the conceit seems simple with people falling asleep, but then the reveal, I was like jaw on the floor. And that's gotta be, it's so cool the pacing that you guys accomplished with this of just like, oh yeah, this feels like another paranormal weird documentary, and then something happens and you're like, oh, this is just kidding. This is something really cool. And that's gotta be so cool in the edit to see that come out for you guys. And I'm curious if that was like not just writing that, but seeing it come to life for you and in the edit and having now people going to see it so soon and what that feels like for y'all to just accomplish a cool kind of reveal moment and maybe a little bit of a twist.
I mean, we
Thank you.
haven't.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
saying that.
thank you.
I was like, what the fuck? In a good way, in a very good
I mean,
way.
that was
Yeah.
always the hope, because it was you. Well, we'll talk about the edit in a little bit, but the pacing of it. Paul and I are very, very particular about pacing, and so sort of in writing the script, it
Um,
was we did intentionally sort of tease out you. We get away with the events being relatively mundane for a while. They're still creepy, they're still unsettling, but
yeah.
they are, reality bound to an extent. And then when they're not, it's the goal was that it would catch people off guard because you've been sort of set to think that the movie is one thing and then it becomes something else. So that was a big swing. But then it was very satisfying in the edit to start to see that stuff pay off because in the
Yeah.
earlier cuts it wasn't. We actually had to restructure the script a little bit in the way all of the information was presented because it was taking a little too long to like you can't stay in that gear for as long in the final film as we did on the script, if that makes sense. And so Paul
Oh,
co-edited the
yeah, yeah.
film, and Paul did a
Okay.
fantastic job of just once we feel like after the introductory voiceover talking about monsters from that point on our hope was to just keep slowly putting our foot on the pedal until
Well,
it
because I was
slowed
like,
down.
what exactly is this going to be? And I was like, I had thoughts, and then he showed it, and I was like, nope, that wasn't what I expected. I love it. Because again, you watch a lot of horror, so to see something unexpected is really exciting too. As you guys both probably know, as like horror people.
Thank
No,
you.
that it's really great to hear you have this reaction because again, Peter and I, we haven't seen this with an audience yet. We've had some people, some friends like watch the film to give feedback, but that was unfinished, and it's only a handful of people seeing the finished film, so we don't really know what the reaction is going to be. It's great. Like people have been telling us, "Oh, it's really scary," and we're kind of like, we don't think it's that scary, but we're like so close to it. It's hard to
Yeah.
know. But yeah, the edit was it it's we like Peter said, we're very big on pace. We wanted to make sure like every minute of the movie you're learning new information either about the characters or the plot. It doesn't slow down because we're asking for, I mean, 84 minutes of your life, and that 84 minutes it has the same value to you as it does if it was a big studio movie made for $100 million. And so
Yeah.
we recognize our format, the low budget, all this kind of stuff, and so we're trying to respect the audience and give them something just super entertaining, which again was really difficult because kind of part of the documentary format is you are free to change any part of it and add new things and do pickups and whatnot. But that is also a curse because you are free to do anything
I
to
was gonna
it.
say documentaries take so long to make sometimes, I feel like, because you can just keep
Yeah,
going for as long as you want or until someone tells you to
yeah.
stop.
And I
Yeah.
think again, a lot of it was on the page, but then a lot of it we found through the process of how you would edit a normal documentary. I mean, there was
Oh,
there,
cool.
but kind of through the process of editing a normal documentary, with the exception that you can change the events.
You're
So
like,
like
aha.
Yeah.
for example, there's a major death scene in the film with someone on fire that was never written, was never shot as such. It was an off-screen death that was like a mistake on our part, and we realized in post-production that was no good. And we called Aaron Moorhead, and we had an idea. We're like, how are you with fire VFX? And he's like, that's my specialty. And we called the actor, and we're like, what are you doing this weekend? And we just literally picked up that shot with a GoPro in like an hour out in the middle of nowhere. And and it's such a crucial moment in the film, we feel, in the third act. And it wasn't there until like 6 weeks before picture lock, which
Movie
is crazy.
making is magic
Yeah.
and terrifying. Like, why?
It's
It's like such
Yeah.
a weird, crazy process of like, oh yeah, that big part, we shot that 2 weeks before we finished editing, and like
yeah.
that's wild.
It's
Yeah.
another big part that happens in the third act, to not getting into spoilers, but there's a very big, spectacle moment, I guess. And it Paul and I only wrote that like 2 weeks before we started filming. Because we were like we need something more in the third act, and we weren't entirely sure if it was going to work or not. 'Cause we honestly didn't entirely know how to do it. But we were like, we'll figure it out, and
Oh,
it worked
I
out.
love that
The
mindset
person,
though. I love that
yeah,
mindset
the
of like, we're
person who
gonna
pulled
figure
it
it out.
off, Tim Buell, crushed it, and he's just a friend that I've known for a while, and we saw some videos he was making on Instagram, and we were like, I think this might fit what we're looking for, and reached out to him. He was like, yeah, I think I can try that out,
That's
and
so
it was
rad.
incredible.
And going off what you said, Mary Beth, about just like figure it out, that was kind of the whole mentality on the movie, and that was the advice we got from Rustic, from Benson Moorhead and Lawson, was just because that's how they
Yeah,
started and do everything, and it was just kind of very much like if we don't know how to do it, we'll learn how to do it, and
hell yeah.
and work with people that are way more talented than us to support us. But there was a lot of stuff Peter and I just figured out how to do.
And
Yeah,
now you could make another movie,
Yeah,
knowing all this new
that's the
stuff,
hope.
and then
yeah,
learn more again on the next one. Because I
exactly,
feel like you never stop learning with making
exactly.
movies. Like you're just never gonna
Oh,
stop learning. But I have to wrap up, but congratulations. I This is like a film I was so excited to see because of the format and everything, and I really was so stoked to see how you guys did it. So congratulations, and
Thank
I
you.
hope it Tribeca. Are you guys going to Tribeca to
Yeah.
watch
we
it with the
are,
crowd?
yeah,
Hell
yeah.
yeah. I hope it's a blast. I bet it's going to be a
Thank
blast
you.
though, especially. So
Uh,
congratulations.
thank you
Thank
very
you. We
much.
appreciate it.